What's this, mate? Episode fucking 187 with Ethan and I, because we're like, we'll probably get to it, but been what? Going to lunches one-on-one for like 2 years. And when he started this podcast, I was like, bro, we've been doing the same. I've been listening to Ethan Harry podcast for the last year and a half.
No, he's right. Noah's probably copped more one-on-one communicative content from me than anybody else I know. So he's very, very well versed on all things Ethan.
Yeah.
I'm pretty well versed on all things Noah.
Yeah,
That's why it's going to be fun. This is why it's going to be good. All right, we're up. We're good?
Yeah, we good.
Noah, welcome.
Right.
Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, mate. Glad to be here.
First guest to drink on the show.
First guest drinking the show. I'm drinking a lovely 2 Bays Pacific Ale, not sponsored. Would be awesome if it was. I would not complain with some free beers. They are expensive, but tastes like a stone and wood from under here. So it's good stuff though.
No, that's good. That's good. Well, I wanted to start this conversation with, how would I say this? Noah, you have a love for your mates that not many people possess. Not many people go out of their way the same way that you're willing to go out of your way to support people, to back people up, to take care of people, to let people know that you're around when Adam's in hospital or, someone's sick or someone's got an event on. You're always first there. You're always supporting. Even when it comes to something like this podcast, you're listening to every single episode. You're giving us feedback. You're willing to come on the show. What inspires you to be so good to your friends?
I think it's just like, it's like you just enjoy seeing other people succeed. Like, you obviously have the pursuits in your life that you want to follow, but I guess the show of true friendship and the show that you care about someone as much, if not more than yourself, is by the fact that you are as happy to see them succeed as if you were to succeed. And I also think that, if you're not happy to see them succeed, is that their real friendship? Because there are, I've got mates who I see them do something, I'm like, oh, that could have been me, that should have been me. But bro, I know that this is what, we've talked about, this is what you feel like you're meant for. And every single person I show the show to, without even saying Ethan's so charismatic, whatever, they just feel like, damn, yeah, he sounds pretty good. And it just sounds like, bro, because the first episode he sent it to me, 5 seconds in, I'm like, yeah, right. Like this sounds professional. This sounds like any other podcast I listen to.
Credit to Kyle. Like we've been working so hard on setting everything up, making it as legitimate as possible. That's why when we started, we wanted to make it professional. We wanted people to come in, to have the cameras and the audio, to have backgrounds, to have the monitor where we can pull things up. So it feels legit. I want people to come in here and think this is a real thing. This has weight. And not just my friends, but guests who I don't know, who I'm less familiar with. I want them to come in and know that we're taking this seriously and this is a legitimate conversation. Yeah. There is something about people though, where they're even their friends, they kind of have that like kind of jealous thing for them. And you even said like, oh, like, that could be me. How do you kind of like distance yourself from that? How do you manage that perspective?
Well, I think it's easiest when it's fields that you not necessarily don't have any interest in, but know that they're not sort of for you, where take this, I know I don't have the gift of the gab like the old Ethan Harry. But, it's something that I really respect, and I listen to a lot of podcasts myself. So the idea of you being a podcaster in the future would be awesome. And for me, like, if my mate in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, multi-millionaire Joe Rogan podcaster, makes my life better, mate. You better be taking me on those ski trips, taking me up Nepal. But yeah, I just think it's one of those ones where if it's in a direct field that you're competing with, it can be a little bit harder to sort of differentiate that. But at the end of the day, like, even soccer, one of my good mates just made a team that is, he was always sort of probably a little bit worse than me throughout high school, even the last couple of years, but he's been working really hard and now he's made a team that, I probably couldn't make. And it's that sort of appreciation of the effort and understanding how hard he's worked in order to get to this stage. And you can sort of say, wow, it's, that's really impressive. And it did hurt a little bit, but I have told him that he's now better than me. So yeah, fair
enough. I didn't want to bring this up so early, but this is such a great time to address this. Recently, there's been some really healthy competition in our friend group, especially between you and Angus when it's come to marathon times. You're a big long distance runner. Angus has been doing a lot of triathlons and long distance running too. Recently, he's gone ahead and beaten your marathon time. I want to know what the plan looks like for you to one-up him. Is there a special beat Angus protocol in place to, throw him off his throne?
Well, Angus is living with me at the moment, so he'll be for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm just going to pump as much MSG, as much fatty foods I can into his food. Just, the animal fat syringe straight in there while he sleeps, just drops little bits of beer and stuff in his mouth. No, I think it's just about consistency. I mean, I think especially at the moment, I don't necessarily have the best body for running. I've done it for years and sort
Mm.
of had peaks and troughs in terms of effort. But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to be consistent at the moment, doing 30 Ks a week. Did 20 Ks around Centennial yesterday,
Wow.
which is pretty good. Legs are feeling a bit sore, but I was saying, chatting to Kyle in the sort of lead up to the episode, just talking about how I find running so much more enjoyable than say the gym,
Mm.
because with the gym, if your form's not exactly perfect or your diet's not right, or you're not hitting the muscle group that you need to as consistently you should, you might not be able to see the growth and the benefits that you're looking for.
Mm.
But with running, if you take me, or so you take someone who's never run before, and you say, okay, you run 5Ks every 3 days for a month, and then
Mm.
you get them to run a 5K or a race of 5K, they're going to be infinitely better than they were that month. And then you do that for another month, and you can be better again. So the progression is so linear when you're starting from a low base. And you can just keep going and going and going. And then you get into stuff where, okay, well, maybe today I'll do a tempo run, or, I'll save myself for the longer runs, get the recovery in. But yeah, I think it's just that the reason I enjoy it so much is the progression. I guess that didn't really answer the question.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
That's perfect answer. Every answer on this show is a perfect answer. We're just rambling, really. But I wanted to talk more about that healthy competition, especially between you and Angus, because this is exactly the dynamic that we're breaking down to start this show. We're talking about friendships. We're talking about how when you're doing the exact same activity, there's that duality there between jealousy and a healthy competition, to not let somebody's achievements or someone's determination or someone's effort discourage you so that you lash out at them, or it negatively impacts the friendship in a way. But then on the other side of the coin, it can be something that grows you both together, and you both shine, and you both have this kind of fun competitiveness to it. What are some other relationships in your life where you sort of have that same connection?
I think sort of one of my running mates, Michael, we run together basically every Thursday for the last 2 years, and he's a lot better than me. But I think having that person who's doing, so we both did the Sydney Marathon last year, and we did the full 16-week program, and just having someone there with you, sort of in the trenches together, who's going to, go message you after and say, oh, I saw you didn't run today. I'm getting there. I'm going to beat you.
Exactly.
And, we both had different time goals. I ran, my goal was for sub 3:30. His was sub 3 hours. So very different, but that person to keep you accountable. And I think, and then we also did this push-up challenge recently, exact same dynamic where him and I were doing it, or in the group chat, whoever did it earliest in the day, I was going into work, sort of going to the contemplation rooms, pumping out 20 push-ups just to get ahead. But I think having that sort of structured competition and having someone who's doing the exact same thing as you automatically pushes you a little bit harder to really sort of strive. And I think that can be unhealthy if your goal is to beat that person. But if it's someone keeping you accountable and saying, oh, this was week 5, day 4, and you didn't do your run, and you haven't, and it's 10 o'clock and you haven't done anything, shit, I should probably get in there, go to the gym, sit on the treadmill for an hour just to get it done.
No, that's a really good answer. Keeping accountable instead of, letting that turn into something negative. It's really powerful. We talked about your love for your mates, but one thing that kind of ties into that is your love for BAC too. For context, BAC is a uni program that Noah and I both did, the Bachelor of Accounting Co-op Scholarship Program. Absolutely fantastic program. The only reason that we're sitting down together and even know each other in the first place is because of that program.
100%.
You love BAC more than probably most other BACs, almost all other BACs. You're the class captain now for 3 years running, and we've
Chief Morale Officer, mate.
Exactly, and we've been graduated for 2.5 years now. What inspires your love for BAC so much?
I think Michelle, the facilitator, always says that on a different day, there could have been 27 other people sitting in the seats that we were sitting in. You and I were on the same interview day. My first memory of you is you being like, yeah, like, I probably wasn't going to accept this course, but I just love the vibe of the uni. And I was like, bro, who is this bloke? Like, I don't want to talk to him. I was talking to some random bloke about soccer. I was loving my time. I'd never see you again. But I think it's just the fact that we got free friends, and I've got so many mates through from high school and stuff who've gone through uni and have one or two friends, or or haven't even made any proper connections, whereas I think we're really lucky with BAC, where basically 27 out of 27 people I'd be more than happy to go grab a coffee, grab a beer, go for a walk with, and you could really genuinely feel like that person's there for you, which it's such a testament to the way that the program's run, that we've got 27 great people. Like, 2 nights ago, we were at a mate's birthday. Half the people there were BACs. 3 weeks ago we had a reunion, which was, relatively poorly organized. So just booked a pub and said rock up on this day, and we got 21 out of 27, and of the 6 people who couldn't go, 3 were out of Sydney. So you're getting an 80%, 85% return, and I think it's just special to have people who are sort of so, obviously connected by accounting, also different, but are still, almost everyone great person, and really willing to sort of foster those friendships.
No, it really is a testament to the program and a testament to the hard work that Michelle and Karen both put into the program. How special have they been for you personally? Like, I know Michelle's been such a great figure, because I feel like when you leave school, everyone tells you that uni you're going to be on your own, right? But we got lucky. We got given essentially a year advisor in Michelle. And as you said, we got given a bunch of free friends too. Most people go through their uni experience and they're lucky to make 1 or 2 legitimate friends that they're able to carry through into life. And we automatically get put with these guys that are going to be a sort of already vetted to be good people. I know that sounds silly, but Michelle's one criteria for the program is good blokes. Like, that's what she tells us. I want you to be exactly. I want you to be a good person when you sit down for the interview. I don't want you to be completely egotistical. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how much you love accounting. You need to be a good person first. And because of the effort that she puts into that selection process, it means that when you sit down in a room with these people for the first time, great connections happen, right? And 5 years on, we're as close as can be. What is your experience when it came to the support that Michelle and Karen were able to garner?
I think, Karen's been there 15, 20 years. Michelle's been there probably 5 or 10. And I think they just know, they know how it's done. They know how it's worked. It's sort of, they've been doing it for so long that they understand that, there's going to be different personalities that don't necessarily mash together well. But I think they do a really good job of just sort of giving everyone equal opportunities. But then the way it's structured is just so perfect as well, where even if you don't want to be mates, like, it's sort of hard to not sort of fall in, and because you're all in the trenches of doing those fast track subjects. You go to their camp at the start, and by the time you get 3 weeks in, it's sort of like, well, it's a lot easier to be mates with the people I've known for 3 weeks than the people I'm going to meet in 3 weeks. So I think they structure it really well in terms of support. I had a great time at BEAC. I really enjoy it. I recommend it, to anyone. I think they do a good job of keeping people grounded as well, because it's quite easy to sort of get your, sort of get a bit too big for your boots, in the sense that I'm this special bloke who's on scholarship, whatever. And then I guess on the other hand, one thing that I respect about Michelle especially is that she's not, she loves BEAC, but she doesn't want it to be, it's not a I guess a coffin as soon as you enter. You can there are the opportunities to, go like Angus we're talking about. He's going off and doing consulting. There's opportunities to get out of it, and Michelle will support you with that as long as you're honest. And I think that's a great thing, where you don't feel like you're being tied down. But on the other hand, if you try and bullshit your way and try and lie, then she'll come for you.
Yeah. No, she's scary when she needs to be. It's funny how Michelle hosts the program. It's almost more of a reality TV show than it is a uni course. It feels like a little bit, because you're taking kids at 18 years old. You're gonna be with them until they're 21, a super developmental phase of their lives. And she gets a new season every year, right? Of kids who are gonna be having relationships, friends, breakups, all this crazy stuff. And Michelle's kind of in that forefront of it, while she's trying to develop and build these people into, finance professionals, but then also just as adults in general, because I think that really stuck with me. Not only was it a professional development opportunity when it came to accounting and finance, but it was a big growth activity for me just as a person. And you mentioned it, the camps, the immersive experiences, going away and doing Jakarta, all these things kind of build your character slowly and give you a better perspective of the world, while allowing you to connect with amazing people like yourself and all the BACs.
And you look at the different things that, like, you had Leon on, the different things that the BACs have done outside of accounting and finance. Like, Leon starting the UTS Vinny Society, Colleen off to be a nun. It's just amazing, like, the breadth of extracurricular and other things that you can do when, everyone comes in just because they're good at finance, good at accounting, good at a yarn in an interview. But they're so much more multifaceted than just being that sort of, typical accountant in the movies where you get your glasses on, you sit in, you punch numbers from 9 to 5, and
Exactly.
then go home.
That's the power of BIAC. You can name any person in the course, and you can name like 3 or 4 great talents they have. Like if you take Nick for example, not only is he super talented when it comes to being intellectually capable, but he's an amazing guitar player. He's an amazing soccer player. He's a great friend. He's an outdoorsman. There's so much to his character. Joey, a great surfer, right? Like just there's these things to people where it's more than just the books. It's more than just the mindset to get into this, prestigious course. It's about the extracurricular activities. It's about your mindset in general and how good of a person you are, how friendly you are to be around, how pleasant you are to everybody else. And, that environment fosters that type of behavior. When you're in an environment like that, it's hard to be the one resisting. It's hard to be the one pushing back and trying to be negative or trying to, impart your own will on other people. When you're in a good, loving environment like Michelle has fostered, it just makes it so much. It makes the environment so much more, ready for growth on an individual level, but then as a group level too. What would be your best BIAC memory, would you say? And this can't be something that like you and I have done, like gone overseas. It has to be something confined to the course, like a camp. I get Jakarta's a little kind of sort of cheating, but it has to be a memory. Like one night.
I'll leave Jakarta out. One night, and it has to be. Okay, I reckon I'll cheat a little bit, but not too much. I reckon those sponsored nights in third year, they were just like you're giving a bunch of 19-year-olds just drinks and seeing your mates. Like, companies we like, go talk to them, you make good conversation, learn a lot. But at the end of the day, like it's just organizing to see your mates 3 days a week, plus all the lunches, plus all that. It was, again, it's just free socializing with blokes you like.
Agreed.
With a bit of drinks. What more can you want? That's the goal.
Nothing much. Like, it was a generational run for BIAC that, however long it was, 4 or 5 weeks of, because what we did at the end of our final year, we would go around and, essentially have these, immersion experiences with these companies where there would be food and canapes. We'd sit down and hear from maybe the CFO of the business, people in some of their divisions, and they would kind of talk to us about what it's like to work there, what the culture's like, what their accounting, division is like, what their finance division is like. And we would kind of get to understand what the business is and, what our role would be if we were to accept a job there, right? At the end of our uni experience. But very often, these were companies we were not interested in one bit, and we would go there and just get smashed.
Yeah, a few big nights coming out of those. But it was obviously we'd lock in first, and we'd learn about the company, and then get up to some extracurriculars.
Agreed. Very rarely would the drunkenness come out at the companies. It would usually come out at the afters, really. But there was a few instances of that. But we don't have to talk about that.
We digress.
Yeah, indeed. So, okay, now moving away from BIAC memory, but just what is one of the best BIAC nights that we've had? This doesn't necessarily have to be, an experience within the course. It can be welcome ceremonies, award ceremonies, but, we've had some real heaters recently.
I mean, my favorite BIAC day, one of my favorite days ever. It involves the Terrys. So those that know, Terry's awesome band. You and I are seeing them hopefully in 2 months. Get a buy your bloody ticket, mate. Keep on your back for that. But I didn't even know it was you getting back from Nepal, and we went to Bottomless in Manly.
Yep.
Met up with Eddie Bell. Went for a beautiful swim. Get the beeline up to Mona. See the Terrys. Bum around there for a little bit. Have a few more beers, and then get a text from one of my other mates going, "Oh, we're out in where was it? Neutral Bay. Come down." So we go down, Leon and I. You had to sack it after that bloke booted on the bus and got off.
Yeah, remember that.
Yeah. And then we go back, and then Leon and I just, meet up with some other mates. It's just silly. End up meeting these random 50-year-old blokes and just going in their house for a few more beers. And just a crazy, that's almost 3 nights in one. Like, you've got the Bottomless. Yeah. That's one event. You got the Terrys. That's another event. Then you got, going out for beers. Oh, it was very, very good. That's the first one that comes to mind. But I think, again, testament. I don't want this. This is basically just an advertisement for BIAC at this point. But
it really is a little bit.
But yeah, it's there's a lot of good nights with a lot of good people.
Well, it was a big part of our lives. Like, it's been
the only reason that you and I are sitting here is because of that, and the only reason that anything from, the probably 5th of December or whenever our interview was in 2020, 4.5 years. It's good free friends. If you want friends, join back.
Agreed. Because you're gonna get matched up with people that you're just gonna instantly connect with. Because Michelle's already vetted them. It's free friends. You couldn't have put it better. It really is. Speaking of free friends, I think one of my favorite. I have to answer this question too because I can't just one-way traffic here. I think my favorite BAC night had to be Angus's 21st. I think that nothing beats rocking up. Angus's house was built for a party. He's got this giant tennis court out the back, right? He had his brother who was like 2 years younger, essentially on bottle service, right? Handing out all these drinks. People were getting silly. Maybe 10 p.m. hits. Noah's gone missing, right? And everyone's looking for Noah and can't find him. There's all these rumors like he's out on the highway running around drunk. He's got no clothes. Like, what's going on, right? 2 hours later, I'm playing tennis in the backyard. Anthony runs up to me, grabs me, he's like, Ethan, we found Noah. We check it out to the back. There you are. In your little position, completely asleep at the back of the tennis court.
Well, that was more a noise-induced sleep direction. My little chat with Angus pre that, but no, ended well, and then the night ended obviously with finding the Sleeping Beauty.
Oh, that's exactly what I was gonna get onto. So we wake Noah up, he recovers. The rest of the night's an absolute movie. Then we're just about to go to sleep because we're all staying at Angus's house, and we realize that Joey's not here, right? And Joey has a funny habit of falling asleep on the bathroom floor. We first realized this when we were in Fiji and I was sharing a bed with him. I had the whole bed to myself, essentially the whole trip, because Joey would just pass out right next to the toilet and on the bathroom floor, on the tiles, his main habitat. And then we realized Joey's missing. There's 2 bathrooms in Angus's house. We check one, he's not there. What are the odds that he could be in this next one? He's probably gone home. He's probably gone there. Bam! Complete asleep. That might have been the hardest.
And there's a video just of you and I just incoherently laughing. Like we zoom in on Joey's face, zooming out, flipping the camera back on up.
It's the hardest I ever laughed, I think. It really is.
It's gotta be up there.
And that, I think, is probably my favorite BAC created night. Because as you said, without BAC, we wouldn't be here having that conversation. We wouldn't have gone to Angus's 21st. We wouldn't have had all those amazing welcome ceremonies. And there's so many stories that sort of like don't get told. Like remember when Leon booted on that first year kid and he just took it like a champ? Like,
yeah, we got the kid off. It was just wearing a tie, pants, nothing else. Running around.
That was so funny because we were in there's this pub that BACs are kind of infamous for going to, which is sort of close to UTS, called the Great Southern. And you and Leon are a little bit slow making your way there, so we were already there. Leon and you rock up. As soon as we get there, we're having shots at the bar. Some first year thinks he's the coolest kid having shots with us. All until Leon just projectile vomits all over him. Shirts come off. He's got to go home. Leon was just like, sack this kid. Like, who even are you, bro? It was so funny.
Welcome to the
league moment.
Welcome to the league.
It was like, welcome to BAC, because BAC has a reputation of we go hard when it comes to the study. We do advanced. We do more subjects than we do 5 subjects instead of 4 per semester. We do summer semesters. We did winter semesters. We do internships on top of that. So it's definitely a work hard mentality, but there is that play hard mentality too. And I think BAC, it really walks that fine line and it does it really well. Because, you don't want it getting too silly. You don't want it getting out of control and it just being sort of like this frat organization sort of thing where you guys are just drinking all the time, being silly. But there has to be some fun in uni, There has to be some of those experiences when you're, between the ages of 18 and 21, you have to get silly sometimes. Otherwise, you never will. So, that's an important part of the course. And, you embody that probably better than anybody else. The fact that you're able to work hard and, even though you have the attitude of, kind of that play hard mentality as well, you don't shy away from working hard.
There was a reason that you and Leon were the only 3 who attended every day at Jakarta. We were playing hard, but we got to back it up, and it never gets too out of hand where you can't meet the expectations they need. Interesting question for you though. I don't think I've ever asked you this question. Like, were you ever close to not doing BAC, in the sense that, like, you obviously got the offer, but was there anything that ever sort of was the apple of your eye, I guess? Or
no, like, honestly, I'd put all my eggs into this one basket of biak, and if I didn't get it, I was in big trouble. And you know this, like I'm not necessarily the classic kid that gets into biak. Right? My ATAR was a little bit lower than, not a little bit lower, a lot lower than most of the other kids that we went to uni with, right? And it was definitely my personality that that drew Michelle across the line. Praise God. But yeah. It played such a big part of my life, and I wouldn't be where I am without that course. And I even remember in the first half of the year in year 12, so it would have been like March, April sort of areas. I told people like, this is what I'm doing. I'm gonna get this course. I'm gonna get in, and it's gonna go well. And that's exactly what happened.
That's that self-belief, man. That's why, again, why this is all started. And I think, I remember you telling me, I'm going to start this podcast. And I think, yeah, there's only very few people who I'd be like, you should just 100% go for it. But I think, one of the things I respect about you, and probably that I'm not that good at, is just being like, yep, this is what we're doing. I'm going to go do it. And just sort of just going all in and not worrying about anything else going on. And just thinking, I'm going to drop thousands of dollars on this, and I might never make money. I might get 10 episodes in, and something happens that I can't record or that, and then it's done. But episode 7, got a lot more to come.
Going strong,
dude.
I think it's kind of that commitment, you know what I mean? Like to be able to say, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm going to achieve it, and this is just the plan. And the good thing about the partnership that Kyle and I have going on is I know that's exactly how he works too. So I can rely on him to kind of carry this journey and, carry this journey through with me. And I really couldn't do it without him. I think something that empowers me to do that is spending time alone, getting time to think to myself, being able to spend time out in nature where I'm able to go, okay, what do I really desire? What do I really want out of this life? I'm 23. I have the world at my fingertips. I'm in such a blessed position to have not only, the money to be able to set all this up, but the friends to be able to make it happen, the guests to be able to come on the show. Because, you guys play a big part in this too. If I don't have interesting people to bring on the show, I don't have a show. If I don't have this amazing network of people that I know who are not only talented, but are really intellectually, well-rounded and well-spoken, then we don't have a show, I remember us having this conversation though, maybe it would have been maybe a year and a half ago, where we both realized because you and I both work really hard. We're in the office every single day. We do jobs that are quite demanding, but you and I have, recently come to the understanding that the best thing to do a lot of time is just to slow down, to take those moments alone, to really reflect and ask yourself what you want. I remember there was a specific memory that you've told me about where you were sitting on like a little donut in the lake and these cockatoos were flying by, and it was just a really serene moment for you. What do those moments do to your consciousness and your mind, and then your ability to be able to pursue your passions beyond it?
I think it's just so easy just to be like constantly go. I literally, and I mean, I'm pretty bad for it. My screen time's not great, like sort of 4-ish, 5 hours at times. But it's so easy. You go to bed, sort of, you wake up in the morning, first thing you do, scroll Instagram, respond to your mates who have stayed up later than you, phone down, music on, go shower, make brekkie, get dressed, music, podcast, whatever it is, on the bus in, playing Clash Royale, whatever it is on your phone, get to work, headphones in, and you have no time at all to actually think about anything. And it's, it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but it's just so easy to do because, there's so much stimulus at your fingertips now that you can just, and it's actually like, it's almost crazy when you get out of that environment. And, we went camping down to Lake Lyle, which is sort of in the Blue Mountains. And like you said, I it was a little, I think it was a little like donut or something.
Yeah.
I had that and had a beer and just swam out to the other side of the lake. And we were just sitting there watching these beautiful yellowtail black cockatoos, just sort of, singing and eating these pine cones. And I sat out there for 40 minutes, just thinking about, just thinking about life and just thinking about stuff. And I think that's something that I'm not great at, is sort of taking those moments to step back. And I'm trying where, I'm like starting to read a book on the bus, say, and, maybe I still sort of have headphones in a fair bit of my life, but, I guess having those little moments of, journaling at night even, and just being a bit more active in your thoughts. And I think it is so beneficial because you don't process things throughout the day when you have that stimulus locked in, and you can go days, weeks, months, years without actually sitting down and thinking, is this what I want? Am I doing what I'm doing? And if it's not, what steps am I going to actually take in order to get to the point that I'm going to be sitting down with, without any thoughts and being content and happy with the space that I'm in.
I think you're talking about giving yourself the time to become who you are. Like that's what I've really been on recently, because as you said, it's stimulus all the time. It's just you're on the podcast, you're on Instagram Reels, you're on TikTok, then you're at work, stimulus all day, going out for someone with lunch, getting on the bus, back on the podcast, back on the music. You get to the gym, you finally have some time where you can actually work out alone, and then bam, you're straight back on the music, straight back on the podcast, whatever it is. And I love podcasts, I love music, I listen to both of those nonstop all the time. But it's important to be able to disconnect, to be able to grow your own, to grow your own consciousness, to grow your own beliefs, to let things manifest within yourself instead of just relying externally on stimulus for your own happiness, that needs to be generated within you. And then to be able to generate that within you and then give it to other people, to be able to express it and shine.
And it is crazy that and again, I'm not preaching here. This is something I'm bad at, but it's crazy how you have to actively now take the time in order to just have nothing. Like you go back 50 years, you're on the bus to work, no stimulus. Maybe you're reading the newspaper or reading a book. You get to work, you're talking to your coworkers. You're not talking, no headphones in, Whereas now, headphones. You go to the gym, there's music blaring, you can't think. You go for a run, maybe that's a little bit more clear, but I feel like you're a bit of a psycho if you're having the headphones in. So I'm popping those headphones in, listen to an NBA podcast, listen to something, probably listening to this. But yeah, it is wild when you actually think that, how many, because it's probably not hours, it's probably realistically minutes of the day am I in complete quiet without any external stimulus, maybe in the 5 minutes before you go to bed. But again, I'd be lying if I didn't have an NBA draft breakdown or something up as I'm trying to knock off.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Like anything that you're doing, whether it's cleaning the house, out for a run, you want stimulus, and that's why doing activities that kind of distance yourself from that, like fishing for me is a great example. Because even when you're not catching any fish, you got your feet in the water, feet in the sand, line out, you're focusing on your baits, you're focusing on the ocean and the beautiful sunset, and there's no distractions, there's no music, there's no podcast, there's no phones, there's nothing, and it's you, the rod, and that's it, right? I think the generations to come, and our generation specifically, we've got big problems because of the environment that we've grown up in, right? Like you see ADHD off the charts, attention spans of children now at the lowest they've ever been. Even, like things that we used to believe before were genetic are now starting to become more pronounced, like autism. Do you think screens, and I'm not going to say screens. Do you think overexposure to stimulus has caused these things? Or do you think it's just kind of nature of the environment?
It kind of helps. I mean, definitely attention span thing, absolutely. Like even if you look back now, like, back in the day, I was an absolute fiend for Pokemon. And I think about now of, say picking up my old DS and going on the games, and you think this is so slow. Like how did I manage to sit down for 6 hours and just lock into this game without anything else going on? Like you need the Subway Surfers in the corner or something just to keep you locked in. Look, I'm not obviously not a psychologist and can't speak on it with any sort of authority, but autism probably not. But I think we just understand it better, and a lot of things before that we forgot, that bloke's a bit weird, probably come out a bit more as an actual sort of a diagnosis. But attention span and by extension potentially ADHD and ADD, again, it can't help.
No, I think you're completely correct. That makes a lot of sense, and it really is that short form content that's winning right now. Like that's why Kyle's so important. We need the short form content to bring people in, but I don't consume any of it for a reason. Like I deleted Instagram maybe a year and a half ago now, and one of the best decisions I've ever made, because yes, I'm not up to date with the latest MMA news, and I don't get to see Eddie's post of him riding a wave, but I get to see him in person and talk to him then and have real meaningful connection. I get time to put my phone down and know that it's not going to blow up with 100 messages, and I really get to take the time to myself and work on me. Because people say, like, people use that phrase like, oh, I'm working on myself, and it's kind of like that. Like I think it's kind of like tied up in that kind of like liberal idea a little bit, but it shouldn't be. It should be something that we all experiment with, we all play with, we all try and hone it within ourselves. And, no one talks about the importance of that. They talk about the importance of the grind, they talk about the importance of money and materialism, but no one ever talks about the importance of your own soul, developing your own interests and your own, fire from within. And I think that's what's more important than anything else, especially when you're young, because it's all about how you channel your energy. It's not about necessarily what you channel it into. You want to have that fire to begin with, and that belief in yourself that you can direct it in certain avenues, right? And I think that's something that's been really important to me, whether it's channeling it and trying to get into BIAC and being kind of manifesting it into reality, saying at the start of year 12, like, I'm going to get into this program, super competitive. I know I'm not the smartest kid in the year, but I'm just going to keep working at this until it happens, right? Same thing with this podcast, same thing with sports, AFL, MMA, all these things. It's the same mindset. Once you have that fire developed within you, you're able to direct it and achieve amazing things that you couldn't even dream of. You talked about getting away, having those black tail, what was it? Black cockatoos. Yellow-tail black cockatoos. You know more about birds than probably anybody else I know.
I love it, mate.
And you absolutely love birds. One of the best stories that Noah and I have is we were walking where were we walking to dinner in Thailand. We were walking out of
Koh Phangan.
Yep.
Walking from Pink's bungalow. I think it was either might have been out to the 7-Eleven or somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I'll let you finish the story.
And we see this bird come down from behind us and land in this tree. And this bird has something that I'd never seen before. It looks like it's glowing. Its wings are glowing this vibrant blue. And it's pitch black. You can't see anything. And you just see this bird fly through and flutter its wings. And it looks like these little neon lights.
I think it was when it hit the street light perfectly. It would just bounce off and you get that flash of blue. But yeah, I mean, it's birds primarily. But I think, for the most part, it's just like all nature in general. I mean, they're the most accessible where, there's so many different ones and, and they're probably the most, you see what more birds and kangaroos say. But yeah, I think there's something that's just special about just, being able just to go. And that's an extension of the disconnection chat where you just, take your headphones off and walk through bushland or a bushwalk or, something like that. And it is wild how much stuff you can see and how much different stuff there is going on that, again, you just don't appreciate. A, because you don't even know it's there, or B, because, again, you move in so quickly that you don't stop and smell the proverbial roses.
Best bird you've ever seen?
Those yellow-tailed black cockatoos are pretty good. They're pretty good. I remember Leon and I went for a bushwalk, Blue Mountains, maybe 9 months ago. The gang cockatoo, which is like a grey cockatoo with a big red head.
See if you can pull a photo of that up, Carl. The gang cockatoo.
Good looking bird.
It is. You showed me the other day.
I did.
And you got a good photo of that actually too.
I did. Oh, where else? I don't know. I mean, some of the eagles as well. Like when we went down the coast for Anzac Day, you see those big eagles, sort of flying around and just soaring, and you can just stop and watch them, and then they dive down and grab a fish or something, or like there's I can't remember his name, this Instagram bloke I follow, you wouldn't know obviously, but they it's ospreys and they fly down and grab a fish, sit in the water, wait for a wave, and basically catch the wave out of the water and use that to get the lift. Yeah, there they are.
That's crazy. Yeah, put one of those, maybe this one, Carl, on the screen for the people at home so they can get a good throw that up. Because that is awesome. And you and Leon saw one of these when you were in the Blue Mountains.
I don't know if they're endangered, but I think they're either endangered or close to being endangered. But yeah, they're just, and we got right up close. It was sitting in a bush just on the walk, and yeah, you just stop and look. One of the best places I've ever been, or not ever been to, but for birds, is an island just off Auckland in New Zealand called Tiritiri Matangi, and it's a basically an island where they've completely got rid of all predators like rats, stoats, possums, all gone. And it's a bird sanctuary now, and you pay $45, get the ferry over, go up there, and you basically do an hour walk up to this line. And it used to be just a grazing field for sheep. So you look back at photos of it 60 years ago, and it's completely barren, just grass. Wow. And now they've transformed it and back into what it would have been 10,000 years ago. And they've got what do they have? They got Tarka which is there's only about 200, 300 left.
Okay.
And you go up to the top of this lighthouse, and there's 5 or 6 of them just walking around as if they're sort of like big green and blue chicken looking birds.
Okay.
And there's another one, I forget its name, but it's this sort of a big grey bird with a big blue wattle.
Okay.
And they've got 150 left.
Wow.
And they're, I mean, we didn't see them, but they're just it's just such an abundance of life. And I don't know. Then you go back to the city and you're like, oh, it's probably a bit better. Yeah, probably fucked this shit up a little bit. But oh well.
It's crazy that you talk about something like that because very, very rarely do we see that happen. Do we see agriculture destroy that island with just complete sheep grazing fields all across it, and then this beautiful regeneration that they've been able to accomplish? Most of the time it's the other way around. Most of the time they're knocking those things down to build cattle lots and things like that. I hope we really do see a return to more of those things, and we're starting to see like those sanctuary parks kind of become a little bit more prevalent, and I think that's really important. Not just because the wildlife's important, it's our burden as humans to take care of Mother Nature and the earth that we've been given. Not only that, but because it allows people an escape to get away from the screens, the distractions, the endless stimulus of the city that we've been talking about. Do you have any birds on your bucket list that you're just dying to see?
It's called an azure kingfisher. It's like a bit of sort of a similar cock. It's similar to a kookaburra, but small and really vibrant blue, really vibrant orange. It was around the areas that we went down to when we went camping the other day. Azure. If you click the did you mean?
Oh, hit this one, Carl.
Yeah.
Nah, sorry.
I think.
Here we go.
That one there.
Ooh.
If you go back.
Sorry, hit this one, Carl. Just this blue writing here. Yeah, perfect. And
yeah, there we go.
Here we go. Yeah, pull up that photo so we can get a
blue.
good look, Carl. But damn, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And where are they? Sorry.
They're so in New South Wales, so they sort of go around. They're relatively uncommon. But yeah, there are just like a lot of good ones going around.
Damn, if I saw one of those, I'd pass out. I don't even know those existed.
They're very, very cool. I don't know, other ones like I feel like these birds like just such like there's so many around Sydney, even like on the walk my morning walk that I do from time to time. There's a couple of king parrots which are sort of they're quite what's the word gender dysmorphic in terms of the male one's green with a big red stripe, the female's just bright green. You don't see them often, but
yes,
getting to see them once a month makes it so much better than getting to see them every day, because there's a bunch of bush turkeys around where I live and they're funny to see, but you're just like, oh fuck, there were 12 of them yesterday, now there's 13, who cares?
Exactly.
But that scarcity breeds a bit more of interest.
One thing that you probably love more than birds, which is a lot, is we talk about you being the comms man, is communications. And not in the classical sense, but if there's news breaking when it comes to your friends or when it comes to big world events,
They call me Woj for a reason.
you're the first on it. The Woj bomb. That's what we call it. When Noah hits your phone, there's going to be good news on the end of that line. Well, it's not going to be good news. It's going to be news.
Yeah,
it's going to be
yeah.
something that you need to pay attention to.
The pendulum swings either way. Yeah.
Exactly. You have an innate talent for that. Like maybe not talent, but like desire. Like it's part of your
desire. Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily talent.
No.
Desire sounds a bit more.
But you love it. Like it's
absolutely.
Have you ever considered taking it further than just the boys? Like, have you ever considered maybe like going into communications, becoming more of a storyteller?
Down a journalistic route, you mean?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know exactly what it would entail.
I don't know. I mean, like the only way I could really think about it is like potentially because I enjoy my NBA and there's a podcast I listen to called the Game Theory podcast with a bloke called Sam Vecini, who's he writes for the Athletic from the US, lives in Melbourne, writes for the Athletic, which is one of the big sort of sports broadcasters.
Yes.
And his job just sounds sick. Like he goes to all the NBA workouts, go to the pre-draft stuff, contacts all through the league. That sort of thing would be cool because you just have such an inside knowledge, and I think it's a bit childish, but like getting to know stuff that other Donnies don't know goes all right. So yeah, but look, I don't think I'm enjoy what I do now, so I don't think maybe as a sort of a side hustle, but I think with that sort of thing, you have to go absolutely all in because it's so time consuming to actually, sort of make leaps and bounds. potentially, maybe be a little bit easier doing something for the NBL, say in the Australian League. But again, I don't know. I think I'd probably have to think about that a bit more. Which, I'm trying to. That's the whole point of this podcast, man. Thinking.
No, agreed. Well, it bleeds out of you, that passion for, communication and I guess connectedness. Because it's not necessarily like communication. It's, because we say the comms man and we say
it's
what
the yarn that comes after it.
Exactly.
It's what, who really cares about the info itself, but it's the reaction of sort of getting to have that conversation and seeing that, I guess, raw emotion of, and getting to share in that experience of, this trade just dropped, say, in the NBA, what do you think? What's your reaction? Da, 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 da. Or, Colleen's a nun. Like, what the hell? And just being able to experience that. It's pretty.
We've dropped this twice now, and we should say, because we haven't. It's such a shame. We have this friend named Colleen who we did BAC with. I wanted to get her on the show before she was able to go away, but she wasn't able to make the show, and she did the classic BAC experience. 3 years uni, got a really good job at QBE, which is one of the premier,
probably
BAC.
the smartest BAC.
Yeah. Probably has a claim to the smartest BAC. And she went to a company that was really highly sought after, did amazing there, and then bam, pulled the plug. And now she's off to Tennessee to become a sister in Christ. And this is the type of stuff that BAC is known for. This is what we do best. Crazy
I don't know.
like
making nuns, maybe not, but yeah.
No,
crazy,
I don't. Not that specifically, but chasing our individual passions.
Yeah.
Like as we were talking about before, me with this podcast, Nick with the guitar, Joey with his surfing, Colleen with this newfound, experience that she's going to have. The environment breeds. How do you even say it? The ability to just believe in yourself, to go out there and know that you can achieve things and just try and go for it,
And I wonder if that's because you sort of have your whole career planned out for you, that it gives you the opportunity to potentially go and then potentially go and pursue other things. Maybe.
Well, it definitely feels like that, because BAC, like the way I sort of, I've thought a lot about this. The way I sort of see it is, the easiest life for me is just to do the regular BAC route. It's just to go do the uni experience, get the good graduate job, and just build your way up from there, right? But that's not enough. Not because it's not enough, because it's not stimulating enough, or it doesn't make enough money, or any of those things. It's just not necessarily what I felt called to do. It didn't feel like my innate passion, my innate desire to be there. And, I still absolutely love it. I enjoy working every single day, and, being in finance.
Keeping the stakeholders happy, mate.
Well, being in finance, it's just such a good time to be in there. There's more happening in the world now from an economic standpoint than any time in human history. What we do on a day-to-day basis is impacted by, geopolitical events across the globe, right? So it makes it innately interesting. And I think that's the part that I love the most about it. But there's a part of me that just knows that it's not my destiny to be there. It's my destiny to be here talking to you with Kyle. This is what I'm made for. Just, the comms, if you will, right? You do have a passion for communication. I really want to understand where that comes from. Have you always been, is this something that your parents kind of told you about? Is this something that you always kind of,
I don't know, because I never really realized it until sort of you and Leon started going, yeah, you do love the comms, don't you? There'd always be stuff of, a result happens in the F1 or the NRL or somewhere like that, and sort of go to dad and say, oh, do you see this? What do you think? Da, 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 da. I don't know. I think it's just a really easy way to make conversation with people. Like, at work, go in, Kevin Durant gets traded to the Rockets. A couple of guys on my team, like the NBA, morning, how you going? See this trade, wild stuff. What do you think? I don't know. Maybe it's my way of, because I'm not an extrovert. I'm relatively introvert. I think I do a relatively good job of hiding it at times, but I am sort of an introvert by nature. So I don't know. Maybe it's my way of creating conversation and creating small talk. I don't know. I've never really delved into it too deeply, to be honest.
No, it's really interesting. Well, okay. Earlier this year, you dealt with a bit of adversity, I'd say, and I've heard the story a million times. But your house partially / almost burnt down. Tell the story of that. And then I'm not just doing this to try to, milk the story out of you, because I've heard it a million times, but I want to talk about the adversity that's kind of come with that and how you've been able to push past it.
Yeah. So it was the 18th of March, probably at about, I don't remember the exact time. Anyway, we're having dinner downstairs, and I still live at home. So it was me, mum, brother, sister. Dad was on his way home from work, and the smoke alarm starts going off. And smoke alarm goes off when you've burnt the toast or something. No, it's never anything sinister.
No, the battery's low in the
Yeah,
smoke alarm.
exactly.
They've they malfunction, whatever it
yeah,
is, right?
something like that. Anyway, so I thought that's a bit weird. Sort of couldn't smell any smoke downstairs.
Mhm.
Go upstairs and you can come up the stairs. And my room's the first one on the sort of on the as you come off the landing of the stairs.
Yep.
And the bed's on fire. And it's sort of that point where you're just like, shit, like, is this even real? Anyway, so I sort of shout down to mum, bed's on fire, da da da. And she doesn't really believe me at the start. So I have to keep screaming. We get the so what's happened is we don't know, we're sort of not 100% sure, but the charger the charger / the extension cord has faulted and the bed's now on fire because it's so flammable. So for the people listening at home, do not charge stuff on your bed because it's just a tinder box waiting to go off. And I still probably do charge stuff, but I try not to.
Getting better.
Anyway, so at this point, I just thought, it's just burning on top of the bed, so I'll grab the doona that's on fire. I'll grab it, throw it in the shower. Probably not the smartest move to pick up the doona that's on fire, but the fight or flight's going. Anyway, put it on, turn the shower on, puts it out. Think great. Come back, look down, and there's a hole. And then there's fire in the hole. So the bed's actually the fire started burning inside the bed. So we had luckily had a fire blanket, get it, put it on. I'm sort of taking the doona that's in the shower, putting it back on and grabbing other blankets from the cupboard, putting them in the shower, putting them back on. And it was probably going at that for, in the meantime, luckily my brother's called the fireys. But going at that for maybe 5 minutes. And I sort of thought, yeah, right, like eyesight's not feeling too good, like feeling a bit lightheaded. And at that point, like I thought I'd semi-contained it, but I was like, yeah, like it's obviously not worth passing out up here. So go downstairs. 5 minutes later, the fire is coming. I thought, I've done a pretty good job here. And then old mate rocks up. The young guys are getting the helmets on, getting the oxygen tank. He just puts his jacket on, gets the hose, and he goes, light up in 30 seconds, boys. Just walks in and just puts the whole thing out. And I thought, yeah, well, that's a real man. That's a real man right there. Yeah, so because lithium battery chargers, which is what the laptop charger was, are so hard to put out, they pumped 400 liters of water through the house. Yeah, and then so it's been an ongoing process. Probably, it's been about 3.5 months now, and we're in a rental, going through all the insurance noise at the moment. But yeah, it's not, I think, look, again, realistically, the only damage that's happened is damage to my room from a fire standpoint, a bit of smoke damage, and then obviously all the water damage.
You lost some of your possessions too, though.
Yeah, but I'm not massively materialistic in general. Like, I don't, I don't own too many clothes, don't own a whole lot of stuff. So that wasn't too bad. But yeah, it's a weird one because nothing of material from a materiality in the accounting concept standpoint got lost. Like I lost clothes, I lost some of my soccer jersey collection, whatever. Everyone's fine. That's really all that matters. It's easy to be, I guess, maybe a bit stoic and say, oh, it doesn't really matter. But I went to the house last night because there was a malfunction in one of the Vigola things we've got, which was making a bang and the neighbors weren't happy. Go over, fix that, and now everything's been cleared out of the house. And it is weird stepping back and being like, wow, this is just such a spanner in the works where, we're over at Macquarie for a month, back to Waverton, back to Macquarie for 2 weeks. Now we got a lease locked in Lane Cove. Yeah, it is weird, but I don't necessarily know if it's a blessing, but I'm glad that we sort of everyone had made it out in one piece. I think it gave me a little bit of solace and knowing that because that's probably one of the first fight or flight reactions or sort of responses that I've had to have ever. Like, you obviously sort of, there's smaller ones, but that's really if we, the fire said, if we didn't react how we did in that first 5 minutes, we got an aircon in the roof, we got an aircon vent in the roof, that the plastic vent had completely come off. Fire gets into there, burns through all the stuff in the roof, whole house comes down.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously maybe it was my fault for starting the fire, but I'll also claim that I saved the house. So yeah, I think it's good to know, I guess, in that fight or flight situation that I reacted in a way that was helpful to the situation. I think mum wasn't too happy in terms of I probably spent, a bit longer in that fire room than she would have liked, but all's well that ends well.
Who knows, right? If you get out of that room 2 minutes earlier, the whole house is gone.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. It's such a what if. And what I've said to, I'm sure you've heard me say this at least 10 times, but if someone had said, at 6:58, whenever I found the fire, that at 7:28, half an hour later, you'd be in the situation you were, you're taking that every day.
Exactly.
You're taking that every day. So, yeah, look, we probably won't be moved back in till sometime early next year, at best. But again, whole family's fine, so what more can you want?
That's what matters. You've dealt with this incredibly well. Like, we both know people that if this happened in their lives, it would just be the thing that, they blame everything else on, that kind of victim mentality where like, oh, like poor me, like this has happened. Apart from telling the story in the comedic way that you do, we rarely bring it up, right? Because, we like, you're just so strong when it comes to these sort of things. Like it doesn't even seem to phase you. And I want to talk about, like, as you said, it's not necessarily a blessing, right? But this is adversity has kind of shown that you can deal with these things and keep moving. Like this hasn't impacted your work, your relationships, your friendships, any of that, right? You've been able to push through and live life like it never happened, right? What are kind of some of your tips and tricks there?
I think, because there's I've thought about this a little bit, and you think like the whole thing of being, it is what it is. It doesn't matter. This is the situation we're in now. That's the way that I've sort of gone about it. And, that can be good and bad because if you, on one hand, you're responding to that and that's great in the short term. And if that's how you actually feel, it's awesome. I think that is how I actually feel because again, you sort of have you console yourself by saying, yes, it's bad, but it could have been so much worse. But on the other hand, that can be a bit dangerous where if you go, no, it's fine, and it's not fine, and you're actually really worried about it, then you can't push that stuff down forever. And eventually it's going to rear its head in some other way that's, it's going to come at a time where you don't want it to come or you're going to be in a stressful situation. And this stuff that's sitting in the back of your mind is just going to sort of push you over the edge. So I don't know. I think it can always be worse is a bit of a mantra in this story. But, for other stuff like, say we had lost the dog or lost something like that, then that's something you probably have to deal with a bit separately because it's a very different, because a life's been lost. It's as a member of the family really, deal with it in a different sort of way.
No, agreed. That's good insight. Another thing that we've talked about a lot recently has kind of been like that mental adversity that you went through sort of at the start of this year and kind of had, I wouldn't say you've consistently dealt with it, but your mind is always there. It's always on and you can't escape it. And when something's not right in your mind or something's causing you anxiety or something's getting you down, there's no escape from it really. Well, there are escapes from it. We talked about nature. We talk about MMA on this show. We talk about music and all those amazing escapes that come with life. But, that's something that you were dealing with for, a few months. What did that teach you about yourself? Because a lot of people don't even, we've talked about this extensively. You don't even realize that you're vulnerable to these type of things until it happens to you. You think, my mind, I'm just doing what I need to do. I'm going to uni. I'm doing the classes. I'm meeting up with Leon and the boys after. This is all good, right? And then all of a sudden, your own mind kind of starts playing tricks on you, starts betraying you a little bit. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, and then that's probably. I imagine that some of that is definitely brought on by this house stuff because it's a lot of change very quickly from, everything being settled and, sort of business as usual to a complete spanner in the works. I think, through times of adversity in my life, and again, I've been very lucky to have a pretty adversity-free life as of yet, touch wood. I think one of the things that I try and do is think like these situations happened, whatever it is. If it's a fuck situation, it's meant to be bad. No one's there being like, oh, whether it's a breakup, whether it's the house, whatever. No one's there being, oh no, this is chill. Everyone knows it's going to be bad. So you can either, there's two ways I see going about it. You either sort of wallow in the pain and go, oh, I feel sorry for myself. Everyone's got to feel sorry for me. This is such a bad situation. Or what I try and do, sometimes I do well, sometimes I don't do as well, is sort of recognize that this situation sucks and then try and do the things that make you happy in your everyday life in order to A, take your mind off it, but B, sort of prove that, almost act as a counterweight to that. And you know, one thing I really appreciate about you as a mate is I went through a breakup probably 18 months ago, been together for 4 years. And the very next day, you know, we had plans because it was the girl's 21st the day after, but we had plans, and you know, you cancelled everything and said, "Nah, boys, come over to mine. We'll go for a swim. You know, we'll watch a bit of regular show, have a few beers." And you know, I think just having that support network behind you, and even with this house stuff, like I had half a dozen mates ask me if they wanted to move in, if there's anything that they could do for me. You know, if you need dinners, if you need somewhere to stay, you know, having that support network that's so immediate without asking any questions, getting people who are there for you so quickly is such, and also just, you know, be able to be honest with, because if I didn't feel as close as to you and to so many other mates as I do, you know, it'd be so, and I don't know how, you know, how I would have done it in terms of, you know, not being able to go to people with problems, because, you know, I love the comms, you know, I like to talk, you know, being able to actually rely on people and have to go through it yourself. And not only, you know, I guess from one perspective, not having mates to rely on, but also the other perspective of not feeling like you can rely on your friends, not wanting to be a burden or whatever. And, you know,
very important, because a lot of people have the support structure, but they're too scared, or for whatever reason, they're not willing to use it, right? And if they were just able to, you know, kind of get that lifeline out there, it'd be such a helping hand. Well, even what you're talking about, you know, when it happened and, you know, a lot of your clothes were lost, Leon was more than happy to donate a lot of his clothes to you. And
first compliments on clothing I've ever gotten, mate. Those white pants.
Exactly.
Work one.
And now Noah's best dressed wearing Leon's fits, which is absolutely hilarious. No, I think mental adversity, it's different to physical adversity. Like, it builds you up in a different way, you know, because physical adversity, it's kind of like, you know, you learn the lesson the hard way, you know, like if you're playing AFL and you go up for a big mark and then you get tackled, and then you realize like, oh, okay, when there's someone that close, you know, I've got to adjust my position so I don't, you know, that doesn't happen to me, right? But when we're talking about mental adversity, things that you experience and that only you experience and only you can necessarily communicate those to other people, that's where, you know, the most growth kind of can occur. So no, hold on, Carl's typing up something here. Life is one big head game, and that's true. That's completely correct. And you know, when it comes to, you know, Volkanovski said it best, adversity is a privilege. These experiences, even though they suck at the time, they build you up to be better, right? Especially when it's in the mental field, you know, because physical adversity, it takes a long time to get better from that. You've dealt with things like that before. You've broken your collarbone playing soccer before. You had to go through the rehab process. You built it back from scratch, got in the gym, did it properly, and now you're back better than ever, right? And, you know, that without that process, you wouldn't have the belief in yourself that you could go through and do it again, you know, that if something was to happen, that you can bounce back.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of, I think Eddie, you spoke to this about with Eddie about his concussion. And it's that such a weird thing where, you know, like you said, you break your arm and you're like, oh shit, you know, the bone's got to heal. With my shoulder, you know, I got the x-rays, got the screws in there. It's going to take 6 weeks. But when Eddie was talking about, you know, how he hit his head and he'd get up to go brush his teeth and he'd walk out of the room and go, what am I doing here? That confusion. And, you know, I'd never experienced anything like that, but I can imagine that confusion would be so scary because, you know, you don't even have the last 5 seconds to sort of work out where you've been. You just spawn in a room and go, what am I doing here? And yeah, it is interesting, but yeah, I think physical adversity is, you know, depending, you know, on an injury basis sounds a lot easier than mental.
Because mental, it's so hard to control. There's no, you know, potential for measurement. Like, as you said, who knows if Eddie's going to be better in 6 weeks or 6 months, right? Yeah. Or if he's ever going to get better, you know? And, you know, God bless, he did, obviously. But, you know, when you're dealing with situations of the mind, it's, you know, it's not as black and white as an x-ray and, you know, the bone snapped in half is going to take 6 weeks, right? It's very gray area sort of territory where it's, you know, it's very nuanced. I wanted to talk about something here. We opened this podcast talking about how much, you know, we already talk and how we've got a million of these episodes that have never been recorded before. And typically we record those episodes. We have those conversations over a bowl of Guzman. And you know that I've got a ridiculous amount of Guzman points. I wanted Carl to pull this up. I sent this to him via airdrop just before the show so that the audience could really see how many points I have. You know roughly how many I've got. Come on, give it a guess before he pulls
I'll
it up.
go. We haven't been getting it recently,
That's true.
so I'll say 710.
Okay, all right, that's a pretty good guess. It's a little less than that.
Because
All right,
I
Carl.
knew it was 680 last time. I think is it 680?
It's still 680.
Still 680.
It's still
You've
6.
been slacking, mate.
I know. I have been. I've been off the Guzman.
Well, mate, you promised me some Guzman for this podcast.
Well, I didn't necessarily promise.
Oh,
Guzman.
here we go.
I promised that we would talk about this and
Promise
we'd get
to
onto
talk
it.
about it.
Can we pull this up so the audience can really see and so they've got the proof and it's in the pudding. Here we go. Look at that. 680, not points. 680 GYG dollars, right? And we've sat down and calculated this
the maths,
before.
yeah.
That's almost $10,000 worth of damn burritos right there.
Because it's 150 points for $10. So, and each point is $1. So you're saying 150 bucks, you get $10 back. So you're going, what, 680 times
150. Type that in, Carl. What's 680?
Nah, 68 times 150.
Okay.
Because you get $10 every 150.
True. Okay. That's good to know. Well, okay, I wanted to do something with these GYG.
So it'd basically be 10 grand.
Yeah. It's a silly amount. And I've been collecting 10,200. Fantastic. Well, I've been collecting these Guzman points for damn almost 3 years now. The entire time that I've been working where I currently am. Yeah, no, it does deserve an award. And I wanted.
The worst bit about this screen is that bloody last order, 16th of May. Come on, mate.
What's wrong with that?
You haven't had Guzman in a month and a half.
You're right. I make my own Guzman now. I got my own beef brisket that I can cook up.
You know I'm an invested shareholder, bro. You got to pump that price. They're up 2% today. They're up 2% today, man. I'm keep buying those for a reason.
They're so expensive, their shares. Like for considering, anyway, we can talk about we can have a little literal financial conversation on this. But I didn't want to get too lost on this because I wanted to say I've got these GYG points. GYG have to know that I have these. Like on their books somewhere, they would have.
They've got their current liability line.
Yeah, exactly.
The Ethan Harry's Guzman points.
Yeah, this is a current liability of $680 that's sitting on their balance sheet that they eventually have to pay out to me. And we've sat for hours discussing how do we spend these points? Do we do a giant GYG party? Do we do like a big fight day where we have like a big UFC card and we just get GYG for everybody? Like how do we actually spend these points? I was thinking about it the other day, and Leon really inspired me to put this into fruition because he's so good at stuff like this. I really want to give them back. I really want Guzman to match that 680, get it up to 1,200, 1,300, and let's donate these Guzman bowls to charity. Let's feed some hungry people that need it more than I do. Because I don't need these points. If I needed them, I would have already spent them, right? They're just free points that come with delicious Guzman. I'll get Guzman no points, right? I love it. But, helping other people less fortunate about ourselves is what this show is really all about. And I think a really good opportunity, GYG, would be to give those 680 points to people more in need than me. And if you could match them, get those points up to get into 1,000 territory, I'd be pretty excited about it. And I'd also want to know if anyone's got more points than me. If you got more points than me at home, send me a screenshot, legit proof. I want to see the verification. And yeah, let's talk because I want to give those points away to people who need it more than me. But you love Guzman. You love Guzman more than anybody I know.
More than you these days, mate.
Agreed.
More than you these days.
For the people at home, what's the order?
It changed up a little bit, but if I could have one order for the rest of my life, it'd be beef brisket burrito bowl. I've dabbled with the extra meat. I think I'm a single meat man.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could get add-ons. Got to get the onion, get the jalapenos, the coriander, the habanero salsa, swap the cheese for chimi mayo. And yeah, those new pinto beans came in. They're all right. Don't mind them. But I'm a black bean man at heart. Just the plain rice is normal. Just so good. And like you said, 3 years, mouth still watering every day. I'm waiting in line. I've got the time perfectly now where I know, they say 4 minutes on the app. It's probably more like 6. I order it when I'm walking from Barangaroo, walk down to Australia Square, bang, pick it up. Don't even need to show the number anymore. They know I just grab it. It's actually too good. Like it's actually too good. I got the socks, bro. I don't even know if I told you this. One of my mates from like 2018 has this Guzman like silver burrito keyring.
Wow,
it's sick. And I remember he got it in school, and I was like, oh, whatever. Like it's sure.
Yeah,
bro. I'm a convert now. I see it on his keychain because we're playing the same soccer team. I'm like, bro, Yeah, I got 680 points for you. We can do a trade.
That would be a good trade. They had a Cinco de Mayo Guzman keychain, and I remember like they said something like, if you spend $150, you can get this keychain. And I went up to the counter. And I was like, "Listen, look at how many points I've damn spent thousands of dollars here. Give me the keychain." They turned me away. They're like, "No, you can't get it. You have to spend $150 in one transaction to get it." So trust me, Guzman y Gomez keychains. I'm a big fan too. You're not a materialistic person, and we've talked about that even with things like the fire, but there are some great, what would you call it? Like they're memory holding possessions. We have a famous hat in BIAC, with this green alien hat. I should have brought it.
Yeah, I was worried you're going to wear it the whole pod.
No. No, well, for this one we'll be serious. Maybe for the second one we'll get you in the hat. But but for now we'll do it no hat. What are some other possessions like that really hold like key memories for you? I know you're a big soccer fan. You have a lot of soccer jerseys. Talk about that.
Well, again, the whole, because I've got that drawer on my shelf, which is the trot drawer. That's all gone now, unfortunately. But from your 21st, like Leonsberger, I got the gnome on there. Got this like cool knife that we got in Angus and I got in Jakarta. One of the big Winghouse beer glasses. Oh, what else is on there? Got a pool ball from the Shark Hotel. And then
you've got the actual like ordering kiosk from Winghouse too. Yeah, with the QR code and everything.
Yeah. And then sort of, I guess, more like sentimental stuff. I'm a Southampton fan, unfortunately. But went to a game in 2016 when I was, young, got there 3 hours before, jersey signed by the whole team, photos with the whole team. And that was the one jersey that I was like, oh, if that gets ruined, I'd be a bit bogged. But luckily that was all right.
Wow.
Yeah, and then not a whole lot else, like like my year 12 graduation tie, so stuff like that, where they're little, sort of sentimental memory holders. But the thing I've sort of found, especially with this fire, is like it's one of those ones where it's cool to have, and if you said do you want it or do you not want it, I obviously want it, but like the memories don't go away just because you lose that, and we're reminiscing now of stuff that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. But
no.
Yeah, the memories still stay.
One of those, like, because we talk about that hat so often, and Jakarta was just prime territory for that hat. Talk about Jakarta as a trip. Like we spent a lot of time, just with the boys mucking around, having a great time. But it was also a great learning experience too to go over there with everyone from uni and really kind of dive deep into their culture too. Like, what are your reflections on Jakarta now that we're 3 years removed?
Well, I guess I see that as the point that we being the broader BIAC group sort of really became close mates, because again we spent 3 weeks together. I think more sort of, and I've noticed this with Southeast Asian people in general, is that they're so kind and so giving, and like I'm gluten free. It's not really a thing in Indonesia because it's sort of a Western genome deficiency. But our Dharma Mani and all the good people at, I can't remember what the company was called that took us around.
Colombo Adventures.
No, it was international internships maybe.
Oh, okay.
So
yes,
what was his name? The Norton. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With Norton.
We can't remember his real name, but we can remember what we called him. No, he was.
They were so kind in making sure that I was getting fed and getting my dietary requirements, and I went through the whole trip without any incidents. But I think, like I said, it speaks to Southeast Asian people in general. Like when I was in year 9 or 10 at school, went to the Philippines. I think Eddie did a similar thing on like a 2-week, 3-week immersion. And one of the more powerful moments of that trip was we went and billeted with a family who had, so it's one of the bigger cities in the Philippines, and the reason it's such a big city is because it's got the biggest prison in the Philippines there.
Okay.
And with Duterte and everything, you have a tiny bit of weed or whatever on you, you're in prison for 20 years.
Wow.
And it's a massive prison, and there's basically been a village and now really a city that's formed around this prison, with family members. They've got their husband, the woman who I was staying with had her husband in jail, and it was her and her 15-year-old daughter. And we go to this house, and they've got one bed in the house that her and her daughter share. They put me in that bed. they're sleeping on those big foam puzzle pieces.
Yep.
They're sleeping on those on the floor. You go to the bathroom, and at night, and don't have electricity, so you're sort of walking around with a torch, going to the bathroom. And you wake up in the morning, and they've already got breakfast all made ready for you, and you think these people who, from a Western materialistic culture, have nothing, but they're sorry, not nothing, very little, but what they have, they're willing to all give to you and to share with you. And I don't know, I'm not a religious man, but I think that is such a strong. But I think and the reason that we were building with these people, because they were big in the church that surrounds the prison, because Philippines is obviously a very Catholic country. But yeah, the care that they had, and the willingness to give what they didn't have, or the very little they had to you, is so impressive and so inspirational. I think it's, that sense of community is, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's something that you just don't have sort of in the Western world. Like, who from any church really be willing to take these random kids, 15-year-old kids, sleep with them, saying, okay, you're not allowed to you can't sleep in your bed now. They've got to take your bed. Come on, I've worked hard for this, But yeah, that ability just to be so selfless is very, very impressive.
No, we could learn a lot. And as you said, you go to those communities and they're the happiest people that you've ever met, and they get by with absolutely nothing. It's incredible to see. And it's an eye-opening immersion experience is the right way to describe it, because you're literally being immersed in a culture that you have you have no like preconceptions going into it. You just have no idea what's going to happen. And then you get there and you're just completely taken back by it. Speaking of travel, the boys are trying to plan a little Europe trip next year for Europe summer. What are some of those key destinations on the bucket list for you?
Well, you can obviously do Europe in two ways. You can do it in the scat way, where you're basically, going to bed at 8 a.m., waking up at 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and there needs to be nights like that. But I think if you're paying 12 grand or whatever for a trip, I'd like to remember most of it. I think just doing stuff off the beaten track. Like one of my good mates, he did, would have been last year, maybe even the year before, did 4 months in Europe and sort of hitchhike / backpacked from Greece sort of all the way up through Croatia, through Bosnia, through Albania, up and around sort of into Italy, into Spain, and up to France. And I think that sort of potential of of being in places, because we had this conversation the other day of, would you rather do 3 days in 15 different places, or do 7 days in 5 different places? I think the idea of just not being in a rush and being able to say, okay, this came up, I really want to do this, or even just not even having the next thing booked and saying, I've got, and with how cheap flights in Europe are, I feel that's relatively attainable. Saying, on the Tuesday we get to Rome and we meet a bunch of great guys, and say, oh, we're actually going to this random indie music festival in Belgium. You think, let's book it, let's go, we'll go, how good. And you sort of, I feel like that's such a, obviously you can't do that everywhere, but I think, for me, I think that'd be a really fun experience, because, you don't go into it, it's almost as exciting, because you're constantly on the move and constantly changing plans and constantly, being surprised and getting the comms on new things. And, that's why Thailand was so fun, because I had no idea what was going on. You booked the whole thing, and I was just sort of spawning in travel book, flights booked for me, a com book for me, just pay a bit of money, and I was, absolutely loving it.
That spontaneous side of travel is so important, though, because if you just have everything booked, everything's done for you, all the meals are included, all the transport's included, you've got your days lined up for you. That's great in its own right, because it gives you the ability to relax. But there's nothing like that spontaneous, travel memories that, we meet these people here. They tell us about this amazing thing that we have to go do. We hitch a ride with them. We go do it. Then we meet these other people who are doing this amazing hike, and then we go do that. Like, being able to just be free in another country with no responsibilities, no cares in the world, and just kind of an open mind and an open map is a lot of fun. Are there any other like big ticket items when it comes to travel that you just can't die without seeing?
It's got to be South America. Like, one of my mates from work, he did 4 months in South America, 3 months in Europe last year. And, so he's showing some of the photos from there, and it just looks insane. Yeah, I think South America, like, going down to Patagonia, going to Peru, going to Chile, going to like Argentina. I had a mate who'd just been in Argentina and said it was amazing. I think it's just somewhere where it's just so foreign, and obviously it's foreign, but foreign in the sense that just so different, and you sort of know what Europe's going to be like because you're so exposed to that culture. But you hear stories like Joey, who did Central America, just so different, and then from a nature standpoint, just so much beautiful nature, like just walking around, being able to see a toucan or I know you love your big cats, a jaguar or something like that. Yeah, I think it'd be really special.
No, that would be awesome. I think from like when when I hear that myself ask that question, I immediately just think Egypt, because Egypt is one of those really, really special places that I imagine it would just take your breath away seeing it for the first time, and the grand scale of all the amazing architecture that they have there. It's just
You're going to
unbelievable.
find those secret energy generators down below, man. I know you've been talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. Get the drones up, get the lidar footage, see what's actually going on. We talked briefly about religion when you were talking about your experience in the Philippines. You said that you weren't a religious man. However, you are. I wouldn't say you're like deeply spiritual. There's an essence to you where it's more than you. There's this life is more than you. It's more than just your family. It's more than just your friends. There's an intrinsic value that you hold, and I think people kind of get there's a lot that religion can bring, and that comes with it, right? But I guess there has to be a way to achieve it without like without reliance on the divine, right? You can achieve that within. What's your experience with the religion conversation and then your own spirituality?
Yeah, so I went to Catholic school. Mum's, we went to church when we were younger, sort of thing. Very, sort of relatively normal story. I've, obviously you're very religious. A lot of my good mates, Leon, Angus, very religious. In year 11, they had at school I went to, they sort of have like a camp that you can go do, which is sort of a faith camp. And you sort of, it's not, they're not sort of brainwashing or anything, but sort of a bit more sort of sort of on the spiritual side. Now, again, at the time, I mean, I wouldn't say either way now if God's real or not. I'd probably, if gun to head, I'd probably say not. But at this time, I thought, I'll go give it a go, because I'd rather go and, waste 4 days in trying to learn than never do it in the first place. I didn't have any revelations, from a spiritual aspect, like you said, from a sort of, I guess spiritual is the word. I learned a lot, but I don't think I've ever spoken to you about this, and it's not something I've only come to in the last sort of couple months, is the whole idea of net positive being the right answer in the majority of situations. There's so many situations, you hear arguments about, say the gay marriage vote or the voice to parliament and stuff. And my thinking is, if it's going to make one person's life better, yes, there's the argument. We had this chat of, especially with the voice to parliament of, it's going to be corrupt. It's going to make a lot of people money. There's negative connotations behind it. But at the end of the day, like if an oligarch gets an extra $1 million in their pocket, but but there's an extra $100,000 going to regional communities in Darwin, or regional communities in the Northern Territory, really helping to change people's lives and give people who at the end of the day land was stolen from them and have absolutely been sort of discriminated against on an institutional level for the last hundreds of years. If it's going to make their lives 10% better, but it's going to make someone else a bit richer, I think the net benefit is improving the lives of these people who need it.
It was such a shame that the voice to parliament was such a divisive issue, because it kind of took steam away from the Indigenous movement becoming more educated. Exactly what you're saying, the role that institutions have played in not shining light on that, moving away from that sort of side of things and not giving them their due. I think, when division is kind of created like that, it shifts the conversation away from something productive, and we move on to, thematics, like schematics, sorry, where it's like things that don't really matter. Like, is this person getting paid? Is this person, able to influence the program in the wrong way? When the real conversation is, as you said, we've been neglecting their culture and these people for hundreds of years, and their land was stolen, right? And we should do more to rectify that. And, division only makes things like that worse, because now, instead of the conversation being about how do we include these people and make their lives better, it's caught up on nuance about like,
it could be done better, or you know, this
exactly.
isn't the right way of going about it. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But again, like I said, if you know, if it's going to make someone's life better, it's the exact same thing with the, you know, the gay marriage vote. Like, I would 100% believe that, you know, the person who's the most homophobic, bigoted person, their anger towards it is going to be nowhere near how much benefit it would bring, you know, someone to be able to be properly married and, you know, and have kids and stuff. And I don't know. I just think it's, you know, a lot of stuff people get worked up about this, when at the end of the day, it's a net positive. It's gonna make someone's life better. So who am I to say, oh, you know, because, you know, I don't want this for my own beliefs, or, you know, at the end of the day, if it's gonna be a benefit, as long as, you know, as long as the negative isn't too bad, then play on.
These are always tricky things to kind of like verbalize, to communicate, because even when you were talking about it before, you're kind of like, is this spirituality? Is this not spirituality? And it's hard to define within yourself. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense and kind of completely agrees with the way I see the world. Whereas you're all about net positive, right? Net positive can be defined as a lot of things, because net positive, that's a hard, you know, there's complexities in that too.
Oh yeah,
right?
and then, you know, when the trade offs aren't, you know, when it's a social versus an economic trade off, then, you know, it's with that, you know, that situation, it's very easy to see that someone getting married versus someone not wanting it, someone getting married is a lot more important than someone not wanting someone to get married for, you know, just because of their gender. But, you know, there are other issues where it's, you know, do we, you know, completely privatize everything to get so much more money? You know, it's going to boost the economy so much. Yes, but, you know, then people living in, you know, non-prime areas of the city have no way of getting to, prime areas of Sydney have no way of getting to work, because you know, they're not serviced by public transport anymore. So there definitely is a benefit, and it's not a black and white way of viewing things, but I think for most social issues it's sort of relatively straightforward.
100%. And I think that net positive lens is a good one to apply. The way I sort of think about it is like, my net positive is love. Like, that's how I think about it. Like, because net positive, that's a good way to think about it. But I think love is the most like character, like when it comes to emotions, it, you know, characterizes that goodness in humans most, you know. And if you act in a loving way, that's the furthest end of the spectrum towards good, you know. And people say God is love. So God says God is love. So, you know, that just kind of drags me into that whole kind of territory there. We're doing the right thing, being a net positive, being a light in other people's lives. That's all in the name of love, and that's all in the name of Christ, in my opinion. But the way that you look at it is essentially identical to the way I look at it, just through a different thought structure. And this is something that, you know, my beliefs are challenged every single day by myself, by others, by crazy things I read on the internet, but especially by my experiences. When I went over to Nepal that you mentioned before, and I was doing Everest Base Camp in a Hindu country, meeting people who have grown up on the side of this mountain, they've never left this village. All they know is the Hindu church and, you know, the Hindu ways, the Hindu stories and things like that. And all they have in their heart is love. They, as you talk about, they're so giving, they're so, you know, welcoming, not just from a hospitality perspective, but from a culture perspective too. They really want you to be there, right? And that shines a light on not just like one avenue for religion, like, oh, it's just, you know, Jesus, it's just God. There's goodness and love to be found across everybody. And I think if you apply that lens, that net positive lens that you're talking about to these social issues, we can solve so much of them a lot quicker than we do. And, you know, if net positive is the way that we measure a society, right, then that is far better than money, than social politics, than, you know, crazy things like religion and race and the way that that's used to divide us even further. It's, you know, that net positive, basing it off love, basing it off genuine human goodness.
Yeah, is this decision or this course of action gonna make the majority better than what it was before? And if the answer is yes, or maybe not the majority, is it going to make, you know, someone's life better than it is going to make someone's life worse? Then it's a relatively clear decision, I guess.
And that's a simple question to ask, and we don't ask it enough. Noah, this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on the show.
No worries, mate.
This has been great.
Me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Catch you next time.